If something is successful, keep doing more, I guess. Sometimes, usually, that's always a good thing. You usually get more movies that are really good in a series, especially being a second movie. And sometimes you kind of look back on things and you retroactively think to yourself after watching said second movie, is there a point to this? Or are we just doing it because we got nothing else left? In the case of this movie, I mean, you could take it poison, but let's be honest, at the end of the day, we know why this was made. Come on. Come on, you know.
Bring it on, Coco! Nuts!
Moana 2 is directed by Derrick Jr., Jason Hand, and Dana Ledoux Miller, with a screenplay by Jared Bush and Dana Ledoux Miller, and a story by Jared Bush, Dana Ledoux Miller, and Beck Smith. The film stars Auliʻi Cravalho, Dwayne Johnson, Hualālai, Chung, Rose, Matafeo, David Fane, Awhimai, Scherzinger, Rachel House, Gerald, Ramsey, and Alan Tudyk. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, after receiving an unexpected call from her wayfinding ancestors, Moana must journey to the far seas of Oceania and into dangerous, long-lost waters for an adventure unlike anything she's ever faced. I'm actually really surprised that it took Disney. People, we are going on 10 years since Moana 1 came out. I'm really surprised we have never gotten a sequel to Moana. Now, whether you think that's a good or bad thing, I'm just saying, I'm just surprised. Because usually you tend to get like a follow-up within 3 to 4 years. And the fact that it took them this long to make a sequel is kind of surprising to me. It really is. Especially for Disney. That's usually never the case I would see them doing, which is waiting almost 10 years to make one. And after 8 years, we get another adventure with both Moana and Maui. Everyone was excited for it. Everyone was looking forward to seeing what does Disney have up their sleeve with this next installment. It recapture what made audiences love about the first film. And in some ways, yes. Unfortunately, this is one of the most disappointing sequels to any animated film I've ever seen. I don't know how they managed to make this as bland as it can be, but not even be on par with the first movie or even come close. It just kind of stumbled. And it's just kind of daunting to me how this is a movie that was going to be actually originally something for Disney Plus. It has put into theaters. That's something that surprises me the most, is this is a movie that is now being released, but yet this was originally going to be either a series or even like a Disney Plus movie. And it's just kind of surprising to me that with what this was, it was released in theaters. There are some positives, but there are some negatives with this movie that I'm kind of underwhelmed by. I was really let down by this because I was hoping for it to really recapture what that first movie had brought. And in the end, for me, it just didn't. But before discussing my issues, here are the positives that I have. The voice acting is entertaining. Auliʻi Cravalho is delightful and headstrong as Moana. Cravalho continues to shine as Moana and will continue to grow as an actress. I think she still has that good range with this character. It seems like this character has never left her. And for Cravalho to still bring that same energy that she did with the first movie, I think is great. Ever since that first movie, her career has kind of lifted off and done some things. And for her to come back to this, it's very nice. It's very sweet. And you can really tell how much this role really means to her. As for Dwayne Johnson as Maui, he continues to be charming. Unlike Red 1, he still plays Maui as having a really big ego, but it's being made fun of. A character like this being made fun of for who they are, especially for Dwayne Johnson, because let's face it, Dwayne Johnson is just going to do what he wants to do. As much as this film continues to show how much of a big ego that he has, I'm kind of glad that at the very least, Dwayne Johnson could still have fun with it. Again, unlike Red 1, where he was taking that role way too seriously and the charm was starting to wear off here, it still is holding me, but at the same time, I'm still not going to discredit anything I have said about The Rock ever since Red 1, but I'm just saying I will give credit, he was still good in here. Just like the previous film, both Cravalho and Johnson still work well together. They are the best part of this movie. They're dynamic together. They really show how much their connection with one another and their chemistry still builds, and I still find myself really enjoying seeing these two together. And you can tell how much that both Cravalho and Johnson still have good chemistry. Even when they're not in the same booth, you could still feel that present throughout this entire movie. Direction is stellar. Directors David Derrick Jr., Jason Hand, and Daniel Ledoux Miller do a good job with bringing audiences back to the oceans of the Polynesian region and make us remember what made audiences fall in love with this world, the first film. And that's the best that I could say with regards to they do bring the same type of feeling that the first film had, and they still bring the world that Moana has brought and has made us still fall in love with this culture and the character of Moana and her struggle and her journey, and she will still continue to do that. And I'm kind of glad that at the very least the director still bring that to the table. The animation is gorgeous. The way characters look and move, along with the environments and creature designs, are top notch. Regardless on how I feel about this film, Disney's animation continues to outdo itself in so many ways. They are some of the best animators in the world that are working at Disney, and the way this movie looks is so gorgeous. It's so beautiful, very vibrant and very colorful and very lustrous. It is so amazing to see how much Disney always puts in their hard work with regards to the animation department, and the animators, round of applause to them. It's always looking stellar. It's always looking amazing. And the fact that they always outdo themselves, it's incredible to see this amount of talent still bring their A game. The score is amazing. Composers Mark Morrison and Auliʻi Foley return and continue providing a score that shows the love, passion, and support for Polynesian music, providing audiences a fun time. And I say the score, we'll get to the songs in a little bit, but the score itself, it's still retained in this movie. A lot of the Polynesian culture is still captured through the music and in the sequences that are in it, and I am very glad to see Mark Morrison and Auliʻi Foley still bring that type of vibe that the first film had, and still respecting and showing the dedication that they have of making sure that Polynesian culture is lived through its score. The cinematography is exciting. The camera work continues to make the film exciting to watch, making it still engaging, which is a good thing because as much as I got problems with this movie, the look of this film is incredible. I'm not just talking animation, I'm talking like how it's all captured through the camera work, through the lens, or the animation world, and it's still amazing to see that amount of incredible engagement with regards to capturing it all. But besides that, it doesn't come close to the first movie, not even on the same level. And it falls short in a few areas, which is the major disappointment with this. So here are the negatives. The story is lacking. Having Moana trying to reach an island to connect the rest of the world felt dull and mediocre at times. Doesn't have an impact. It doesn't leave that impact for audiences to really fall in love with. It just kind of feels like, all right, another adventure. Okay. Like, I should be feeling the emotions that I had with that first movie, or at the very least, leaving an impact. And I don't get that there. I feel like they really dropped the ball with what they wanted to go with this story. And this honestly could be something that they could have used for like a TV show, not a movie, to be honest. Or even if they were to do a movie, it would be for Disney Plus. And that's what I'm saying, is that the story I don't think matches the quality of what the first movie had. And this just kind of feels like nowadays you would see this as being a series or a Disney Plus original movie type of plot than a theater experience. The songs are forgettable. While the first had catchy, memorable songs, there is nothing in here that makes it even come close to the music or really the songs of that said first film. Aside from maybe one song, there is one song I will say is enjoyable. I really do like it, but most of them just feel lackluster. And that's the disappointing part, because unfortunately Lin-Manuel Miranda did not return for this and was working on a different Disney project. And instead, what we get is a bunch of songs that, if you ask me, are performed well. Everyone does a great job with the singing, but yeah, there's just nothing memorable with these songs, which is the really disappointing part, because that's what made the first film so awesome, is the music. The music of the first movie is stellar. It's amazing. The songs are just iconic now. And here they're just kind of meh. The side characters are still underutilized. Besides Hey Hey the chicken, which I always enjoy. I enjoyed him a lot in the first movie. He gave me a good laugh. Here, he still gives me a good laugh, but otherwise, most of the other characters are not fully developed or just really bland. Just like the first, the urgency with Moana's home just isn't as impactful. That was my problem with the first movie, was that I kind of wish we had seen what was going on while Moana was off on her journey with Maui to restore the heart of Te Fiti. And here, it's the same way. I still don't see what's going on from her home, how the people back home are feeling, maybe some glimpses of her sister, but for the most part, you don't really see the impact of what this story is having with regards to her home, the urgency of it. And it just kind of, you're just still focusing on one set of characters, which is fine. I mean, you should be focusing on your main characters, but you should also be focusing on the urgency of why they're doing this. And you just don't get that. The writing feels bland. Writer Bush, along with Daniel Ledoux Miller, make a script that rehashes and reuses jokes and emotional moments from the first that feels hollow. And it's disappointing to see the script here just not be as tight nor as emotional as it can be. It just kind of feels like, let's just do what the first film did and just bring that element. But what made that first movie work so well was the originality as well as humor and emotional moments. And it just kind of feels like they just took those elements but forgot to craft a script that feels nuanced, or at the very least feels completely different than the first. It just kind of feels like the same old, same old. It feels like how a sequel kind of feels. In this case, a sequel that just doesn't come close to the first film. The villain is boring. You can say that the first film's villain wasn't memorable that much, but I give credit because I at least understand the reasoning. I really understand, like, the villain that they fight at the end, a reason as to why they're upset. But they weren't as pointless and dull as in this film. I don't even remember the villain of this movie because they're just so boring and so useless. I'm just kind of like, what was the point of this villain? It just kind of lacks the feeling that this character should have, and he just kind of feels like he's lackluster in the end. And that's unfortunate because I wish I had a good villain, but I don't, unfortunately. I just get a lazy one at best. A case of sequelitis that plagues this film. Nothing exciting nor terrible, but just bland. That's the best way I can describe it. It's generic, it's bland. That's the only way I can sum up this entire movie is those two words. Just a huge disappointment compared to that first film. And honestly, I'm just kind of struggling to see where Disney's going with regards to their animated movies because they've just been lacking. They have been lacking with regards to what makes people go and see their animated film. And as much as this is making a lot of money, in the end, I would still rather go back and watch the first over the second one, that's for sure. I don't care about the second one. I'm going to give Moana 2 a 5 out of 10. I think it's just purely average. It's another case of, it's a sequel. That's what it is. And that's the disappointing part because for a sequel to a really beloved Disney animated film in recent years, I expected better. And in the end, I just get something that's half-ass. And that's the disappointing part. I wanted something better, and I didn't get that. But that's just me. Can't say that for everybody. I could say that only for me. So now November is over, and I can now move on to the December movies, starting with Y2K. And then soon afterwards, Kraven the Hunter. So yes, look forward to those reviews and other movie TV show reviews coming soon.